right. Hello, everybody. Welcome again to the 5G Into the Abyss reading series, where I stand on my virtual balcony, speaking out of my virtual window to my virtual audience. And I read very much real texts from people who I think inspire contemplation during times of deep human reflection and awareness, seeing of the great mystery of the empty space that we find ourselves catapulting through. But there's meaning there, and that's the search. And so these writings are all in that search. So today I return with a new writer. For some of you who know me, you probably know that I tend to come back to this writer a lot. His name is Stanislaw Ignacy Witkiewicz, also known as Witkacy. Witkacy is a Polish writer. He wrote from around the 1910 until about till exactly 1939 when he killed himself. But he is just a rebel and a unheard, misunderstood writer for so much of his life. He was a painter, a philosopher, a playwright, a general comedian, and prankster, but also so deep and reflective on the role of art and the gradual grain of society and the great mystery that we're all too afraid to stare into. And so we sit back on our heels and look for comfort, which just makes life go a lot easier and uneventful. But in his mind, the origins of art were to be in dialogue with the great mystery. And it was the only thing that we had to navigate this unknown. So we have to keep asking ourselves and staring into the unknown. He has a wonderful quote, and I hope I don't paraphrase too badly, but he says, "In the future, you will neither have the strength to create beauty nor the courage to look the mystery in the eye, but you will be happy. Isn't that enough?" So his whole thing was happiness is basically an opiate that's putting us down from real contemplation. So he also has a very interesting story on how he died and then his body sort of not found for a while and then came back in Poland as not really his body. So he's continually playing jokes on all of us. So today I'm actually going to read, I don't have his book with me because I'm not in my home, but I'm going to read from the intranet a piece of text that I found that I know of his, and it's called On Dualism. This is from the Witkacy Reader. It is a great compilation of his texts, and it is translated by Daniel Gerould. I think I'm saying that right, I'm saying that from memory, but is the Witkacy Reader. And I highly, highly, highly recommend it to anyone who's interested in Witkacy. So I am reading On Dualism, the section in the Witkacy Reader that also entails the 622 downfalls of Bungo, or the demonic woman, as well as a letter to his very close friend, Bruno Malinowski. And the reader traces his relationship with Bruno Malinowski in a great, hilarious, tragic, sort of very Witkacyan way. So everything about Witkacy is fantastic. I can't say enough about him, but I'm just going to start. My own personal pleasure to read this man out loud. On dualism. The question of psychological dualism has been with us constantly ever since Descartes set a new course for modern philosophy. The question is incapable of resolution because we humans unchanged throughout the entire course of evolution, have remained completely immersed in the mystery that surrounds us. This is the danger spot, a sort of underwater reef, barring access to the calm waters of universal knowledge, against which, over the centuries, have crashed steamships laden with logical systems and swift sailboats bearing reflective intuition. This trouble spot is difficult to locate precisely. It is the fine dividing line separating subject from object, mind from matter, the known from the knower, etc. Seemingly an insignificant little line, it has proved to be an invincible obstacle, holding back the greatest of human minds from even momentarily elucidating the mysterious, quote, thing in itself. And in our predicament, it never can be known. It is like the asymptote of a hyperbola continually approaching but never meeting a curve. Science has been unable to provide any valid assurance of truth, thus leaving only our sense perceptions as the sole sphere for making a synthesis. And yet here too, this turns out to be impossible. And it seems as though, along with the perfecting of the means of reciprocal cognition, there has also arisen a sphere of sense perceptions and apprehensions that are as unknowable and mysterious as before. Dualism is constantly present in everyday life, in the simplest of its manifestations. In each person, there exist, as it were, two tendencies, synthetic and analytic, centripetal and centrifugal, but always only within certain limits beyond which the analytic component does not stop feeling and the synthetic component does not stop thinking. The relation between these two opposing tendencies determines the nature of people and the differences among them. It could be likened to the interference between two sets of waves with precisely designated limits to their amplitudes. The analytic or empirical logical trend attempts to define the subject by all that lies outside it. It is centrifugal cognition. All materialistic systems belong to this category. The second tendency takes for its point of departure the conscious self as the only directly given entity, and everything that is external to it is conditioned by the cognitive mind. Such duality is characteristic of all great philosophers. This holds true of Descartes with his mind and matter, God above meditating between the two, of Spinoza with his substance and its attributes of thought and extension, both of which are God, of Kant with his pure and practical reason, of Schopenhauer with his world as will and as idea, cherishing the illusion that by means of words he had explained the mystery of being, the unity of will, and the plurality of individuals. Every human being has moments when he feels his own nothingness in the face of the world surrounding him. What is the point of painting, playing roles, creating, or even living if we belong to the system of the Milky Way, which is 65 light years distant, while somewhere in the immeasurable distances there whirls the nebula of the constellation Andromeda, along with thousands of other illimitable worlds. Thousands multiplied by thousands, infinity times infinity equals infinity, and thus wherever we stand on either side, there always gape bottomless abysses, above which we are forced to scale the rocky mountain ridge of life without ever stopping to rest. Conversely, contemplation of oneself and of others makes the pitiful inadequacy of all mental conceptions only too evident. What are time and space and the causality reigning over the diabolic chaos of worlds, and the amoebas in a drop of water, and the nebula in the infinite heavenly expanses compared with the life of the human soul? What is all that compared to the musings fraught with forebodings on one's own being? What is it compared to the terrible power and consciousness of the self when unfathomable silence fills all the empty spaces of the brain for a moment which becomes all eternity? And so these two tendencies continue to battle within man, and the result of their conflict is this life of ours, so miserable, shabby, and mean, so inconceivable, magnificent, dazzling, and infinite. The problem of what is called free will likewise belongs to these questions of dualism. Schopenhauer is right. We look at the world from one viewpoint, but at ourselves from two. Hence the dualism and disproportionateness in our currents of thoughts. When, submitting to our centrifugal tendency, we attempt to explain our existence by what lies outside us, i.e. motives from outside, i.e. by physical causes, we quite abstractly reach the conclusion that we are only links in a huge chain of something that reveals itself to us in time and space as unconditionally subject to the law of causality. But this marks the end of our knowledge. And although it can be infinitely expanded, nothing can advance our consciousness one iota, since it always remains a cipher compared to the infinitude of the mystery that surrounds us. Free will strikes us as a corollary of internal and external causes and nothing more than that. Discouraged at this point by the feeble results of our analytic reasoning, we turn to our center, to the inexhaustible depths of our feelings, and here alone, in the mysterious and inscrutable worlds of synthesis, we derive our strength and the consciousness that our existence is free and unique. And if on the one hand, on dualistic grounds, we cannot deny the existence of causality in external phenomena, as well as in the motives directing our seemingly free actions, then, on the other hand, by submitting the same question to the judgment of our unmediated consciousness, we absolutely deny any predestination on the basis of our feeling and unconditional power. In both instances, we are right. It is interesting to note that if a matter of truth touches both us and the world surrounding us, this question becomes twofold depending on the point of view from which a given phenomenon is observed. The question of free will also remain unresolved, oscillating between absolute causality and absolute randomness, drawing infinitely close to the truth but never reaching it. Hence it follows that our predicament, from which we cannot escape no matter how hard we try, rests on a split into subject and object, whose real relationship we shall never clarify, since we are not indifferent spectators of the phenomena, but one of the active parties. December 1902. And here's a letter to Malinowski. 1906. Dear Bronia, I'm answering you right away to explain that I wrote a letter to Sofia Dembowska, saying I told you about the debauchery she and I engaged in. I wrote her everything so you can discuss whatever you want with her. Well, then I had such sharp pangs of conscience with regard to Zofia that I wanted somehow to set things right, even if it meant playing a dirty trick on you. And I asked her to write you everything since you know all about it. She is so fabulously magnanimous and she wrote you everything. I offer you my sincere apologies for doing that, but a person who has played as many diabolically dirty tricks as I have can somehow find reasons for just one more at your expense, which she has done in order to conceal the previous ones. I see your demonic smile as you read this. I'm sending you her letter, from which you will perhaps draw interesting conclusions. As for your reproach that I am low, I forgive you thinking so with all my heart, since a person with whom someone plays a game is bound to consider as low the person is toying with him or who plays the games all the time. That is why my whole life will seem to you to be hopelessly low. But there's nothing we can do about it. Evidently, you haven't worked on mathematics hard enough to find the equation for the curved line drawn by my artistic hand. I'm making an attempt to idealize my life once again, and perhaps then you'll be willing to talk things over with me. My father is gravely ill. He has a fever and is spitting blood. The house is in a state of pandemonium, and that's why I'm in no mood to write anything interesting. I'm painting quite a lot and making constant progress. Will you let me come to the defense of your thesis for the doctorate? Write when it will be. After the exam, you can treat me to dinner at the Grand Hotel. Many kisses. Your Stas. Yes, I hope we won't bear each other any ill will. Forgive me, son. Farewell, Margaret. The Duke and Warwick forced me to do it. And then we come to the 622 downfalls of Bungo, or the demonic woman. And that is a short narrative fiction piece that I'm going to read tomorrow. I'm just going to leave it there. This is the introduction to Witkacy that I will spend today and tomorrow on. And we'll just keep on exploring in the abyss. All right. Thanks a lot, everyone. Talk to you later.